from further away, being further away, and ground vehicles maybe smaller. They can be seen at a middle distance. So what we expanded here is a lot of work that Andrea has been doing. So basically, there is a lot of information about the vehicle propagating its presence to possible observers based on the size of the vehicle, but also what you see here is these little spheres that are around the vehicle are audio stimuli that get generated, and those are dependent on, for example, the strength of the thruster. So the strong is the energy that is put into the movement, the farther away some of this information is perceived. Of course, these are being an internal video. What you need to imagine is that also the backdraw is made in a way for us to test the things. So you see this sphere that you might think, say, oh, maybe it's just too small or it's too big, but this is just purely for testing the system. And some of the lines you see here, for example, is visual perception. So you see that they perceive right now the vehicle as well, but it's basically it's obstructed, and they try to attack the target. Basically, now NPCs can actually query also vehicles as targets. They can select it through our selection system of targets,
¿Qué pasa,
and
chavales? Estamos viendo aquí lo que parece ser
when we more or less effectively
eh, una revisión en progreso, o sea, una revisión interna de cómo están haciendo el tema de que parece ser que haya un fijado de no solo NPCs en tierra o jugadores en tierra, sino también pues a vehículos, ¿no? Vamos a ver qué tal.
They know it's there, but they can't see it. The green lines are, they know it's there, and they can see it. What are the blue lines?
Yeah. So there are different ones, like for also like there's some information related, for example, if they're friendly, if they're not, if they're enemies, that different type of information, like the last position. Um, some comes basically some colors comes if the last position comes from visual information or from audio information reader and stuff like this. But like the other thing that you see here is like there is this information at the center that also tells you when was the last update from Vision, for example, for the Vision, because we try to be distributed to not. In this case, there are 4 guys, so it's not a big deal. But like when we have 2,000 characters in PU, we also try to distribute a bit better the updates, but also still getting it because, for example, with the one thing we changed some time ago was about when we would get perception update based on the frame rate of the server. This one now is more with the entity system component, we could expose how many kind of ticks update we could get between the different updates. But now with this, what we call the eye scheduler, where now we can specify better what is the time frame in which we try to get this update, and we still try to distribute. So of course, the frame rate is too late, too small. It still takes a little bit of time for them to get all updated, but not as much as it was before.
So
There's also a different priority based on, the guys that are close to you and the one that are in a fight and something like this.
So obviously there's 4 guys here, and as soon as the vehicle comes by and generates enough sound, that's the big bubble that you're seeing. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're aware of the ship. The ship flies around, and then they get visual on it, and they see it. The ship comes back around, and they lose visual. 3 of the guys, or 3 of the people, go and start moving around the building to find it, but one of them doesn't. What's the difference in behavior there? Is there some randomized element of this? Is there?
Yes. So there is there.
I see 3 are going,
Different.
and
There are
one.
different things.
Why is that
So
one staying?
first, that one specifically, I cannot tell you right now, but I suspect that this is about the timing that we use for the TPS queries. So what is a TPS query? TPS query is a query in the environment. Because I don't remember, just to give you some context, I don't remember if in this video they were running the exact combat behavior or if they were just running a test behavior that Andrea has made for this specific video that I can't remember in the detail. I also don't remember when is exactly this video from, because this is quite an old one, let's say, compared to the thing. So
I just think that guy's dumb.
it could have been also just a bug there.
Me están comentando algo interesante. Están diciendo que este vídeo que estamos viendo aquí, que es antiguo, o sea, que llevan trabajando en esto un tiempo, nos está explicando de que, bueno, la burbuja que vemos ahí alrededor de la nave es el sonido, y las líneas que veis, pues obviamente, cuando lo tienen en visual, pues veis que cambia de color, ¿no? Y veis que tienen como una especie de distribución de esa info de visual al resto de NPCs, la cuestión es que dice que también, pues hombre, depende la velocidad de refresco del servidor para poder hacerlo eficientemente. Y que obviamente, pues, cuando consigan mejores rendimientos en los servers, pues, que esto funcionará mejor, ¿no? Pero está bastante guapo porque son capaces de percibir tanto visual por sonido, luego vemos como cuando empiezan a perder la visual por la distancia, empiezan a rodear el supuesto edificio y a buscarlo.
Thinks that he's actually trying to move and position himself in a where you can see it. Basically, this is why it's probably not moving. But
What's next?
it's just my suspicious. So what's next? Let's go to. We can show a bit of the trolley and elevator work. So these are another things that Daniel has been working on the tech side. What we want is to allow the NPC to basically navigate through the environment exactly as a player would do, right? So if we have elevators that connect multiple floors and the NPC wants to go from one floor to another, now they understand this connection. So what we use as a transit manager, that is both elevators or actual transit, the transit carriages, basically create a potential link. That means that even if there is no mesh connection, the NPC knows that they can basically move from one floor to another. How to navigate to that floor comes from the movement plan. And in this case, you see that he understands there is a connection. He goes to close to the elevator. He leaves the trolley. In this case, he press the button. Once he press the button, the elevator comes. He understands that the elevator is coming because then there is new navigation links that it will pop, as you see here. Goes in here. He leaves the trolley. He goes to the console on the side of the elevator that has like a little button. It's not super visible here, but there is like a little console there. Then these new links, the green ones, are basically connected to different zones, the elevator to the external zone. Then he can find a path here, understands that he needs to wait, and press the new button to go to the floor that he wants. And then basically the elevator tells us when we reach the right floor because multiple people could be there. Also, the player could be there and pressing some other buttons, so the elevators could stop at
And
different
they move
floors.
from one mesh to the other, the mesh to the.
And then they move to the next mesh, yes. As you see here, there are two things interesting. Here is the usage of the trolley, despite this little jiggling that you see, that, this is one of the bugs that we're working on.
Bueno, esto que estamos viendo aquí es
But the NPC now
bastante,
can actually use the trolley as
bastante
the player
tocho.
would. They are really connected to that.
Porque estamos viendo como un NPC, pues, es capaz de utilizar el elevador, que además con un carrito, ¿vale? Está utilizándolo con un carrito y, bueno, pues esto supongo que será, aunque no lo están comentando aquí, supongo que tendrá que ver también con el futuro de que los NPCs nos carguen las naves y demás historias, ¿no? Pero vemos como esas flechitas que vemos ahí en el medio son los links entre los diferentes redes de navegación de cada zona. Y vemos como además parece ser que el botón del elevador le va a proporcionar la información al NPC de qué zonas están disponibles para poder ir, ¿no?
For the NPCs. So,
teniendo en cuenta también que el jugador puede estar tocando botones y demás, o sea que están programando todo esto para... lo que veis ahí es el link de navegación, el puntito verde ese, ¿no? Que es hacia donde tiene que dirigirse todo el rato.
Second video. I do have to ask before we move on though. How do we know how afraid this AI is before getting on the elevator? Like,
how afraid?
Of the elevator killing him. There's
well, it's not that afraid. This one it's a very strong soldier.
Not impressed with this AI.
He could be afraid. He could have a trait that is a bit more cowardly, and then
just want to see some. The AI should hesitate just a little bit before they step on board.
The funny part is we could actually do it because with traits and those navigation links have actually information about which type of navigations they are. We can add even different costs. So maybe if somebody's afraid of using the elevator and there is a stair or a ramp, he might prefer the ramp, than using the elevator. So we can actually set up those things.
So what's next?
So next, I would go to these other improvements that Maurice has been working on. That is the extension on the navigation code to allow overrides. So we have two use cases for this one. One is actual environment where a different type of agent size can navigate, but with a specific stance. In this case, it's with crouch stance. So you are in some vents. So a normal player understands that he can navigate through, right? But the regular navigation mesh will not generate. So what we have here is we can create overrides for different agent types and say what are the new sizes that should be used for the voxelization and the generation process. And then we have specific navigation links, as you see here, both the ladder, but also this crouch to stand at the end of the vents that allow the NPC to understand that they need to transition from one state to another and then enter into these different environments. Another
Bueno, lo que estamos viendo aquí es cómo el NPC, pues mediante una sobreescritura de la red de navegación de la zona, parece ser, pues el NPC es capaz de meterse por los tubos de ventilación y entender mediante enlaces de navegación que tiene que agacharse. O sea, darle al NPC información del entorno para que pueda hacer la travesía. Esto es un NPC también haciendo la travesía, no es un jugador ni nada, ¿no? Dice además, especifica, bueno, pues un jugador entiende cómo hacer esto, pero un NPC pues hasta ahora no. Y de esta manera pues entiende el entorno y puedo usarlo, ¿no? Puedo usar este tipo de lugares.
back. And also, as you see here, there is also the extension of the navigation links for the ladders as well. So NPC can now use ladders as a player does, and they can position in and out.
For the folks who are watching on the live stream right now, the videos are all pre-recorded because we would lose half the show loading and unloading levels if we didn't pre-record the video. So the show is live. We're live. You can see me right now. Hi, I'm live.
What we can do next time is we can pick one of those options and show it live as well. Because this is cool. Like you can also like select the character, middle click in the level, and they can just move around. I mean, I see here this is our editor as well.
Yeah.
It's just a bit cropped, but
Yeah. We often do in these internal reviews. We often do the pre-recorded videos because again, you would just keep every director in the company, everybody just waiting while you're loading up one level and unloading another level and switching between builds and stuff. And it's just a much more efficient use of time.
I mean, we need to respect, a time frame even in the internal project update, right? Otherwise, it will take too long.
Yeah. So what's next?
These are a
Ian?
couple of improvements for locomotion as well that we did in the past months. So this is one thing that we had before. So when we use Orca as collision avoidance, and the problem is that we're seeing was that we were adding a bit too many constraints that would result basically into a modification of the speed at which a character should move to for the locomotion to handle it in a bit strange way, right? So in this case, he was trying to say like, oh, I should not hit the wall, but I should not hit the character, but there's not enough space. Let's go super slow. Eventually, I will pass through, and it was not really looking good. So we decided to relax a little bit some of those constraints, and it looks good. It looks much better. It looks much smoother. It will still avoid each other. We also have some additional work here that we've done sometime in the past where the capsule that defines the characters, especially if they get stuck for different reasons, because maybe also players.
Aquí lo que nos están diciendo es que tienen una movida que se llama Orca para evitar la colección de los NPCs y tal. Y lo que estamos viendo es cómo había una solución al principio que vemos ahí que se ralentiza un montón, que eso no quedaba bien y que lo suavizaron para que no fuera tan obvio, tan evidente, ¿no? Que se detenía tanto el personaje, que da mal.
Just immediately stop and then play the idle. That looks not that natural. So we work a lot on adding sharp turns, start and stops, especially for characters. So as you see, it looks much more natural. I didn't have like a proper sharp turn.
Claro, aquí nos están diciendo, pues esto está trabajando en los últimos meses, ha dicho, y dice, bueno, pues igual que lo de la colisión. Aquí nos están hablando sobre la parada de los NPCs, que no sea tan brusca y que haga un movimiento como que acompañe a la parada, ¿no? Que acompañe a la parada para que no sea tan brusco después de... O sea, que no pase de correr y luego pasa al estado de idle, de desocupado. Sin una transición y que sea brusco, ¿no?
It's all basically it's the majority of the eye part because it just sells what the character is doing, right? And I think as we see right now as well, it's like a lot of the issues that we have right in PU and we are working on for Squadron is really to make sure that this situation don't happen because if you don't see anything obviously wrong, then it's like you don't really know why it took that path or not. It might actually absolutely make sense from a human perspective, but if it stops like that, it really doesn't make sense.
Right.
And this will make it really look good. But also just the sharp turns, for example, that we are working on right now. We have it working for lots of the stuff. It does makes the flow so much more natural for the moment. I have this other one that is really cool. That's what the Andrea has been working on. So we started with the idea of we wanted to have hazards for AI, and then AI, being aware of that. But the way we implement it, and in these videos, most of the time it's called navigation cost volumes. In reality, those are something we want to rename a little bit. It's probably going to be a layout modifier or topology modifier. And then they also have additional functionality to also influence the path. So as you see here, there's like completely empty nav mesh across the environment. And once you basically you can define some areas that basically enforce a specific topology with specific triangulation. So this allows you to modify and enforce specific triangles in specific locations. On top of those triangles, you can define what is the meaning of this area. For example, it could be a danger, it could be something they would prefer to be in. It's something that they might just avoid because, I don't know, based on the behavior, for example,
Ya, lo que estamos viendo aquí es como ellos que quieren nombrarlo como... O sea, quieren renombrarlo porque tiene un nombre que no tal. Quieren nombrarlo como una especie de modificaciones de la topología o tal. Bueno, lo que quieren hacer, lo que estamos viendo aquí es que están definiendo unos rectángulos, el tipo que en realidad puede ser cualquier forma. Y esta forma pues le pueden dar las propiedades de lo que es la red de navegación, que es toda esa zona azul que vemos ahí, ¿vale? Lo que quieren hacer es que, bueno, lo que quieren hacer no, lo que va a hacer esta zona es que puede adquirir ciertas propiedades, como por ejemplo, pues ser una zona que se puede evadir porque sea un peligro, o sea, lo van a etiquetar, o sea, lo podrían etiquetar y de tal manera que, pues, que sea un sitio en el que se prefiera estar, sea un sitio en el que se prefiera evitar, pues, porque sea, pues, yo que sé, pues, una roca que no sea fácil de subir, por ejemplo, o que sea simplemente pues fuego o que sea pues una trinchera, por ejemplo, ¿no? O sea, puede ser diferentes cosas.
more costly area.
The time it would take, the damage they would take.
Absolutely, yes.
O sea, entiendo que cuando dice que es un sitio en el que puede estar, una de las propiedades podría ser eso, ¿no? Que sea una zona en la que conviene estar.
Additional things into consideration. For example, it's not just that that one is a fire hazard, but we consider is like what are my properties. I might be a character that has a special suit, right? That doesn't get damaged with that. There's I don't know a chemical in the area. Normal people would not go there, but I have a chemical, hazard suit, and then I can go through basically.
So
Claro, podría ser también, por ejemplo, una zona en la que haya pues un peligro ambiental y que un personaje no vaya a esa zona a no ser que tenga, por ejemplo, pues un traje que le permita estar en esa zona, ¿no? Un traje de anti, pues un traje que sea resistente a la zona pues peligrosa de ese área, ¿no?
whatever
Exactly.
the thing is, it's all a matter of when you say cost, it's the cost to that AI in
Yes,
not
it's
achieving their
literally-
goals.
Exactly. The cost that is usually with a pathfinder that is a combination of the actual distance they need to pass through, but then the distance gets, weighted also based on additional value. And this one, but it's like, for example, also in this case, you can see some more, the backdraw examples where, the eye really can pass through corridors with all where, simulating at the time to be an hazard. But we have use cases for this one for multiple things. One can be, for example, imagine you want to have pedestrian that goes on the sidewalk, and they try to not be on the road unless they really have to, and they might cross only the crossroads. So you can actually mark up this environment. We also want to get it, completely automatic, so that they can really try to do that extraction of features, information, on the environment, in an automatic way. This is with the static one. This always allows designers to manually place this information and mark it up. For example, there is a bonfire on PU, whatever, and that will never turn off, right? It's always there. We can just mark it up and say this is a bit more costly, for example. But the interesting part is the second part that this is really like from this sprint. This is super new. We actually didn't even show it yet, the view update. So this is like, people will see it even earlier than other directors. But basically what it is here is like, this is the combination of dynamic generation of cost modifiers, or topology modifiers, plus the additional cost coming from the game code, that is associated with specific dangers. So in this case, the fire. So through the UI interface, you can see that we can simulate, basically turning on fire on things that can ignite. And as soon as something ignites, basically the system notifies us of the area in which the fire has effect. And we can dynamically generate these cost modifiers, regenerate an mesh, and then the cost gets propagated, basically. So you see when the fire turns off, the RS basically disappears.
Lo que estamos viendo aquí, que esto sería algo reciente de este sprint, de hecho, comentan, eso es lo que están trabajando, que es para el universo persistente, que se generen de forma dinámica zonas que tienen un alto coste para el NPC. El coste se refiere a que, pues el coste, pues el pasar por ahí, pues tiene penalizaciones para el NPC, como puede ser el fuego, que arda el fulano, y entonces lo evite. Entonces, en este caso vemos el fuego como tienen la posibilidad de poder generar el fuego para hacer una simulación o poder apagarlo, y vemos como la red de navegación se adapta de forma dinámica a los focos de fuego para que el NPC los evite.
And then for the AI that were a little more cavalier, a little more, I don't have anything to worry about, they might even choose
Also
to go
pass through.
through some of the fire, or if they're being very urgent, if they're emergency
Absolutely.
responders, they might choose to cut through the fire to get to where they're going as soon as possible.
Exactly. So these are an example, right? If, for example, you tell the AI to actually go inside the environment that is dangerous, they can still go. In this, you can see it here.
Claro, lo que está diciendo es que si en caso de que necesite, si es algo muy urgente, incluso le podrían decir a los NPCs que atraviesen el fuego, ¿no? En caso de que tenga el NPC definido esa propiedad, dice, mira, pasa esto, si pasa esto, pues atraviesa fuego igual, ¿no?
This kind of the same tags cost modifiers that we use for navigation links. So we can tag them this intention that you are describing, but also say that it's not just the cost that gets influenced, but also some costs are so high that basically.
O sea, esto que estamos viendo aquí hay que entenderlo como que el día de mañana, pues, destruimos una nave, la nave empieza a arder, yo qué sé, quizás se llegue a prender fuego a la flora en algún día, ojalá sea verdad. Y de repente, pues, la zona esa se convierte, pues, en una zona peligrosa para la travesía de los NPCs, y los NPCs realmente esquiven esto y puedan adaptarse. Y lo veamos que tenga sentido, ¿no? Cuando estemos jugando al juego, que esto tenga sentido. O sea, daros cuenta de que, pues, el componente de batalla en este juego, pues, siempre está presente, ¿no? Entonces, claro, ver este tipo de cosas, o de batalla, o de, pues, lo que sea, de que hay un fallo en una estación o cualquier historia, y realmente vamos a los NPCs a hacer este tipo de cosas, pues la verdad que es interesante, ¿no? Aumenta desde luego la inmersión.
It's like you can't, so you will always know.
O sea, no me gustaría ver a un pavo, o sea, un NPC mirando su móvil Glass en Idle dentro de unas llamas, la verdad.
Off the fire before I can come with you. And then, you can turn it off, and then you will dynamically find the path and follow you, basically. This is all stuff that we will be able to do with this tag.
Cool. And to be completely clear, you said you hadn't shown that to Chris yet.
Chris has seen the previous one, but I don't think he didn't see this one yet. Well, we published it for Chris, so probably he saw it yesterday night, but not officially with my presentation. So he saw just he might have seen the video, but
Just,
not
you-
the whole.
It doesn't happen
experience with the
often, but
presentation.
occasionally there's a moment where Chris sees something on ISE or SCL for the first time before he's seen it internally, and I get an email.
This is very.
I'm going on
very
vacation
rare,
next
you know?
week, Chris.
I think this is basically a really interesting things. One thing that Andrea's experiment, for example, is also to say, what if a troll is left around the environment, right? You don't really want to go so close to trolleys. We can use it with spaceships so that people try to avoid it. We could use these things for example, to increase the cost of landing area when something is approaching, right? So the NPC understands that, oh, now something is approaching. I can navigate this area, but not that close to the landing zone. The landing zone has a regenerate cost, but then when somebody is landing is even higher, for example. And do a lot of interesting mechanics with this.
Cool.
Also, it's good because it can allow us to modify the topology of the mesh. So it allows us to link, making navigation links there, enforcing that they exist.
And just because I can hear Mike Snowden in my ear, metaphorically anyway, the fire that you were seeing there is work in progress stuff for the AI team and stuff like this.
Absolutely,
That's not the final and finished effect. I would think I wouldn't need to say that, but I'm sure there's going to be
It's
somebody.
better. It's better. Yeah. I mean, these are all internal things, right? So, and how much time do we have still left?
We still got 30 minutes. You got time.
Cool.
You can
So
get it all
let's
in.
go on the feature team, right? So AI is split right now into two groups. One is tech, where we usually work, and again, there's much more. These are some of the things that we selected. Um, and then there's the feature team that is more focused on some of the behaviors and features that are directly impacting combat or different features. And let's start with accuracy, right? One thing is like this, what we call mercy time. So there is designers can basically control how much the AI basically is forgiving for the player doing something not correct. So in this case, for example, the player is really standing still in open environment, right? And the AI is shooting at him, but just to avoid that he kills him and he doesn't have a chance. Like his life is going down and his health is going down, and now next shot is probably gonna kill him. So you see that is blue, the back draw, the black in the you see there is a hit chance value. So right now, for example, it's at 28%. First of all, our hit chance now with the new changes that are not yet in PO, basically it builds up, right? So when I see a character, I'm initially not very accurate, and then I end up being with the accuracy designer set, and then I'm damaging you. Your health goes down until a certain moment where I give you a chance still to react and do something. And this is the mercy time, basically. As you see, it says mercy time. Each chance is 0, so the eye becomes inaccurate in that moment, and then you have a chance to react.
Vale, están comentando algo interesante de que lo que tenemos aquí pues es una programación de la IA que todavía no está en el universo persistente, pero que estará. Vemos cómo va cambiando de color, que le está disparando. Aquí estamos viendo una animación de disparo. Entonces, lo que estamos viendo es cómo quieren implementar que, bueno, que esto será opcional a los diseñadores del nivel, ¿no? Está comentando cómo la IA puede ir cambiando de precisión. Es decir, que si te alcanza, pues que se le configure como un tiempo de piedad, de mercy, que llaman mercy time, que sería pues en el sentido de que el NPC tiene 0 puntería. Es decir, a ti te pega, el jugador se da cuenta de que recibe daño, obviamente, porque le baja la vida. Y entonces tienes como una ventana de tiempo en la que te permite reaccionar, porque hay que entender que si no los NPCs... O sea, los NPCs se pueden transformar en dioses. O sea, podrían apuntar todo a cabeza y no fallar nunca. Entonces tienen que tener algún sistema de alguna manera que te diga, hey, te estoy pegando, pero tienes una oportunidad, ¿no? Y supongo que eso ya, la ventana de oportunidad que te dé o tal, o los parámetros como quieran hacer, pues igual si hay un boss no te da oportunidad ninguna y tienes que hacerlo entre varios, o sea, cosas así, ¿no? Eso habrá que... Eso será algo opcional, pero por lo menos está bien que esté la opción de que, oye, el NPC te dé de alguna manera tiempo de reacción, ¿no?
And in that direction. But it's not really trying to play, It's purely like trying to stress out the system and see how it goes. Let me show you like some work that WoW has done as well. That is enabling the usage of turret, like mounted guns. It's called turret, but the video, but it's actually mounted guns. So as you see, the character can go in mounted guns right now. So NPC can actually use it as the player. They will always try to aim at you. Everything uses the same accuracy that we, exposed, that we just spoke about. There is
Aquí estamos nuevamente viendo como pues, el NPC en este caso utiliza ese mismo sistema de apuntado con las características que hemos visto antes, pero que además permite utilizar pues, una ametralladora montada, como si un jugador lo hiciera, ¿no?
is the speed at which I think one thing that we probably will we will experiment with is also the speed at which the character moves. Not too much for FPS. I think usually characters move at a slower rate anyway. But like when we aim at a spaceship, right, that could have more impact and will give you more chance to survive.
Right.
Reaction to grenade is a very another internal test where we can show NPCs actually now perceiving grenades correctly, try to run away from it based on where they land, so they will react to it and they have a chance of running away, or they might still die out of it. Of course,
A chance.
that's still
Low chance, I guess.
it's still yeah. I mean, we can control it. We can control how quick they run, how fast they react. We can control some of those things, and designers will have to tweak it so that it's not frustrating for the player if they have a nice shot, like in this case.
Claro, están diciendo de que los NPCs al tirar granadas pues también tendrán como su oportunidad de poder reaccionar a tiempo o no. Y veis que pues hay algunos que, que palman, uno que sobrevive.
Some might turn a different.
Pero que definitivamente sean conscientes de la granada, los NPCs.
It will shout, it will inform the other ones, and the other ones will react because one person saw the grenade. And of course, some of those, just to be clear, are test behaviors as well, used for evaluating. It's not the actual combat sometimes, or like they go back to a test behavior, for example, just to be able to try it again, even once they are in combat. And some of those videos, when you see that they are not reacting always to the player, is also because we use a lot of CVARs that are internal controls that they are meant to also, not react to the player, for example, right? They react only to the grenade, but not to your vision and stuff like this, so we can test it a bit better.
We just answer a question in chat right now from Creeks. What is that? 17 says, "Why have they pinned the server status page when it had no updates? Because that's where the updates would be and will be when there are updates."
Where is it? Oh,
It's not for you, Fran. I'm talking to the chat.
It's not for me. Okay, that's fair enough. I thought it was a question for me. And I
No,
was like,
no.
which update? Cool. Another thing that we are doing, this is a lot for characters that they will eventually be also useful to hire, right? So these are NPCs that can actually systemically take boxes, crates, and load them into your ship, load it into a trolley, and then use the trolley.
Estamos viendo cómo esto es permitir a los NPCs poder cargar las cajas en tu carrito o cargarlas en tu nave.
They actually pick up the boxes. They understand how to pick it up. They slot it into the trolley, so they understand that now there are different actions that they can do just because the crate is attached. So there are different metrics that we calculate for where you can.
Sí, chicos, aquí estamos viendo cómo estaban programando pues los NPCs para que puedan cargar nuestras naves, chavales. En general, mover carga, ¿no?
This is all our slotting functionality, basically. It's like a usable is attached to another usable, gets slotted into that based on our description, and then they can basically use that. As you see, there is still that bug that I just recently fixed, so you'll not see it anymore. Eventually, at least sometimes they walk on the spot. But like the character now understands that the trolley is full, and now he can unload the trolley and place it into some specific.
Claro, está diciendo que aquí el personaje, el NPC, entiende perfectamente lo que es el carrito y veis que tiene diferentes puntos, o sea que entiende perfectamente el uso del carrito, ¿no?
The cylinders around the trolley.
So there are two things: the height, like the taller one. That one is what we call alignment slots. So it's where the NPC needs to be to perform a specific operation on the object that is on that location. And the small one are enter position. So that is where the actual animation start to arrive to the location of the alignment slot. And when it becomes red, it's because it's reserved and it's in usage in that moment, basically.
I feel like that's too tall to stack those boxes.
Yeah, you can do three. You can stack 3 boxes one on top of the other, basically. Right now, with animations that we also have, that they, look very, very nice, right? You can really see that, the weight of the box and how they do it. They also, they're very careful with their back. Try to stack it in the proper way so they don't get hurt.
I was gonna say, are we sure that form is proper? This looks
Yes, it's training, safety training as well.
My
right?
lower
It's like
back hurts
the
just
box.
watching this.
But it's I think there is a lot of tech in this one, also enabling, disabling, for example, automatically use slots that are allowed to be done. For example, in this case, when it's pushing the trolley, you automatically disable the ability of somebody else to go and pick up the box, for example, right? You don't want that somebody takes the box from the trolley that you are just moving around. And then, you can have also multiple people loading at the same time and only one, pushing the trolley. So it's, you see, pushing the trolley disables the ability to take load boxes into and these are really some this is why they're gray, for example. These are gray because they're disabled in that moment. And in this case, he's taking it, right? So he will disable while he's taking it, the push, so somebody cannot remove the trolley while you are taking it already, right?
I find myself thinking about how this works with, or will work with volatile cargo. Like, will they be very gingerly moving, doing it at half speed?
I think there will be also a bit of support that we need to do for the tractor beam eventually there,
All right.
because I think there will be a lot of bigger crates that they will not be really able to grab
At least,
physically like that.
at least in the
But this
early
is very
iterations.
physical. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But these are very physical interaction with the world, that our system allow, and it's
Bueno, le he preguntado sobre las cargas volátiles y han comentado sobre el tema de qué pasa si la carga es volátil o tiene peligros, ¿no? Y ha dicho Discorando imaginarse cómo sería la carga volátil y demás. Y dice de que, bueno, que también. Y dice, pues también tenemos que hacer aparte, a mayores, el tema de que puedan utilizar el rayo tractor, los NPCs y demás a la hora de mover la carga, ¿no? O sea que sí que hay planes para eso.
sort of commands that we can give to NPCs, right? So we can ask them to defend an area, attack a target, defend myself, move to a location, load a box into
Aviso que para los que no estéis acostumbrados a verme haciendo esto, que no puedo saludar ni nada porque tengo que estar pendiente de lo que dicen, ¿vale?
this. These commands can either be exposed to,
Pero un saludo a todos.
but they can also be used, for example, from wingman commands, right? You can hire somebody, and then from the UI, you can code the exact same logic that a designer would ask the AI for specific operations, right? So it's purely like it's all systemic. It's just like our description of how the NPCs can perform a specific operation. In this case, for example, there are just a couple of examples of attack and defend areas. So this is an attack area. So what it does, he can move into an area that is supposed to attack, and then he will go around and search for these areas, for example. The designer can specify the speed, so the urgency that the NPC needs to use to move into the attack area. It can be far and rushing into. They can say walk slow. Eventually, we can also expose like a different range that can be used for different distances. But you see, like in this case, it's like kind of gives sells the intention of you need to rush into this area and attack or defend, for what it means. And the attack area basically also means that this is all embedded into a peaceful section of the behavior and a combat section, right? So some of these commands can have a version that happens when no target or no enemy is present. And in this case is, okay, if I need to attack an area and I don't see any enemy, what do I need to do? First of all, I need to try to arrive into that area. If I need to defend it, I should just defend it, stay there in a defensive position. But then there is also the fact that you can transition into combat. Some of these assignments can have their own version of the combat, but they can also just influence the regular combat behavior. In this case, an attack area, what it does especially is influencing the target selection. So it will always try to prioritize the targets that are in that area.
Estamos viendo, antes cuando se movía el NPC, estamos viendo cómo están definiendo zonas de ataque o zonas de defensa. Los NPCs pues actuarán de manera diferente. En el caso de que haya objetivos en la zona de ataque, como lo vemos aquí, se puede definir una zona de ataque para que le dé prioridad a esa zona y luego pues haga la otra, ¿no?
Because they still make a threat. And the defend area as well. For example, this is a bit of the transition I was telling you. Like characters can be told to move, to a defend area, but also it might already be in combat. So once you're in combat, it can be told, oh, you should go into the defend area. So what it will do is that it will basically modulate this combat behavior so that it can move into a nice location.
Claro, aquí estamos viendo como si hay un objetivo y hay una zona de defensa, el NPC irá a defender esa zona, aunque esté en combate, seguirá atacando al objetivo, pero tratando de recuperar la zona defensiva, ¿no?
But then you can switch it, and then, for example, these areas are a bit overlapping, right? So you will try and then after to find some nice cover into that area. If they overlapped, he could also stay in the same cover. and so on and so on.
Right. So it's like, you know, I hate this person, and I'm being told I have to go defend this area, but I'm gonna see if I can do both.
I'm still trying to do both, exactly, until I absolutely, because again, in this case, of course, in this test case, as you see, like this is always something, a nice feature that Chris has been working on. And when we test, we also don't want to risk that he dies. So, we have this guy even like, it's a civilian completely, he cannot react. I think it possibly was even outside the mesh, or something like this, but it might just be like a dummy player, what we call that is a simulation of a player that doesn't really, it's not another NPC, just simulates a player that stands there, and then these are enemies from the faction perspective. So I really consider it as a style.
Gotcha.
We use it a lot that one because you can also take it and move it and see if he reacts correctly. What did we show? The healer is the last one, something that Jake has been working on. Again, this one is also an internal thing. So animations are definitely not final. These are majority of those animations are, just blockouts that we use to verify the flow. So, just be aware of that. There is some medpen usage.
Qué guapo el comportamiento de healer, ¿no? De poder dar asistencia.
Yeah, but these are test behaviors, so they don't respect any distance, right? They are really meant for us to make sure that we can test the flow. So the character basically is reviving him, and then he goes back into combat. Obviously, I would never expect an NPC to go close to a target like that to revive his friend that just died, right? Because he will die immediately after. Majority of those, might even be, like the player right now is in God mode as well, so he will not die himself. This is another case where if you don't have the trait that you cannot revive him, you can also send a request for a medic, and then the medic, again, this case is coming really close because we are testing it, but in general, the medic might try to revive people that they require, in the right moment if they are respecting the rules, like being far from the target, for example, being a bit more hidden positions. But as you see here, for test purpose, the guy comes in, he has a med pen, he goes because he can revive, the other guy cannot. So he comes in. I mean, obviously, we try to shoot me because it's forced. As you see here, we are just forcing a little bit in this situation. The way.
Claro, aquí estamos viendo que en caso de que no haya, médico, lo que puedo hacer es solicitar un médico. O sea, en caso de que el otro no tenga medicinas, pues puede solicitar a alguien que las tenga. Y entonces vemos cómo ha aparecido un tipo detrás del muro, en otro NPC, y lo ayuda a revivir, ¿no? Que puede haber una situación en la que haya varios casos así de NPCs que estén tirados en el suelo y bueno, pues se vaya distribuyendo la prioridad y los vaya reviviendo.
Just,
Si hay un NPC dedicado a eso y el NPC que está ahí con él, el otro NPC, pues no tiene los medios necesarios, ¿no?
So the first thing you do is try to get back into a state where you can get back another weapon. And this is another reason why you don't expect this to happen very close to the target, because otherwise you revive somebody, comes back in, is next to the target, it will die again. It doesn't even have a weapon, right? So this will happen, you might see it happening in the background or a bit far away, and you have to make sure that, you put pressure on the eye so that they don't revive each other as well.
Yeah. So we've only got a few minutes left before we let you go, Fran. Yeah. We'll go ahead and open it up to some questions from chat. If you have a question that's AI related for our AI director, you can go ahead and put it in the Twitch chat. Preface it with the word question. It helps me make it out from the other thing. And again, AI related. I understand that many folks are struggling to get in. They're struggling with the 4014 error, whichever number it is. Unfortunately, that's not an AI related friend error. Yeah. It's like, nor is it a video error. So you have the two of us this week on the show. We're not the ones who can tell you about that, which is why we're always linking people to the status.robertspaceindustrials.com website. That's where you're going to find those sorts of informations and stuff. The biggest question, before I even have to look at the thing, Fran, is you've shown us a lot of examples of AI behaviors that are growing, that are becoming more complex, so some advanced tactics and stuff, but we don't often see those behaviors in the live game. Is that what you're talking about? Well, why that is? Is that just strictly bugs, or is that server performance stuff?
It's a combination of things. First of all, I think we have a lot of streams right now, right? Not a lot, but we have few streams. And whenever we stabilize something, right, not all the new changes go in immediately into that stream. So, for example, in 318, you have some of this stuff, and this is where, for example, people see a very high accuracy because not all the accuracy work is yet in there. For example, we don't have the mercy time. We don't have yet in 318 the build up of accuracy over time. Some of the balancing, needs to. One thing I'm always saying is that it's very hard to balance the eye for the server that goes at 30 frames per second or a really low frame rate. So sometimes some of those values are trying to compensate for some of the low frame rate, but then it don't work very well for 30 frames per second or 25 frames per second. That is where people see the accuracy is also very high there to try to help in some situations, but of course the long run that's not what we want. Some of these behaviors as well will come with integrations because we have automatic integration from the streams where we work on into what we call Gamedev, and then from Gamedev goes into the live stream. Whenever we can, we try, of course, to integrate as quickly as possible, but some of those behaviors might have dependency on other departments' work as well. For example, I don't know, changes on the actor state machine or how the specific state works, or on animations that are yet, as I've shown you, there might be white box, right? And those are not yet ready to be on the live release. So we cannot enable all those behaviors. I think there's been some videos that I've seen from PU, for example, of the reacting to dead bodies that we were using in PU, some of the white box animation that were not playing correctly. There's one case where we usually disable these behaviors, and if they especially if they're wrongly enabled from our inclusion and so on and so on. But the idea is that we want to enable them only once all the directors involved in the feature are happy with, right? Because we don't want to show necessarily. I think this is also a nice preview, but everybody involved into this one wants to have his work shown as best as possible. And then, of course, there are also sometimes bugs that we need to fix. Some of the things that I want to see is a bit of the reaction, how we can speed up a bit of the reaction time, also on low frame rate servers, so that we can get a bit better experience from our players. Because we see like this large difference in experience from people that play a highly frame rate server and a low frame rate server.
You see a dramatic
Of
difference in the
course,
capabilities of the AI, especially like during Siege of Orison when you jump into a fresh server.
absolutely.
You jump into a fresh server in Siege of Orison is devastating.
Super
And
deadly.
then
And
you
I
get
think we
into
need
one.
to, yeah, we really want to have like a more balanced experience, right? It's not that we don't want, but you know, it's a little bit about priority. Sometimes some of those features needs to happen first in regular development because you unblock other people to basically prototype their missions, prototype their levels, right? And it's not that the other part is not important to make sure that also the live experience is important, but sometimes you need to have an harsh decision. You say, what do you want to unblock those guys? Do you want to block these other guys? And you need to take some with the resources you have. You need to decide how to allocate those resources, right, for the greater good. But we are working hard to make it sure that everybody can experience those behaviors because this is what we want you guys to play with and give us feedback about.
From Amadeus in the chat, how do you assure that AI will not break when their routine or behavior is interrupted by the players? Players would never mess with AI. They would
Player would
never
always
kidnap
want,
mission
right?
givers.
Yes.
They would never load them on the
So
ship and take them to the other side of the star system.
Mhm.
That doesn't
So
happen.
we have different ways of doing that, of course. So let's say you have a routine behavior of, a janitor. So a lot of our behaviors, of course, make sure that, you need to have specific things to perform the operation so you can check what you have. Let's say combat fight starts, right? And then the janitor loses, needs to react. So he drops out his mop, his broomstick, or, his bucket, whatever. Then we always need to make sure that the same way as if the janitor starts from scratch, he pick up, he needs to be able to pick up those things, or he cannot perform specific operation, right? So of course, if the player steals all the broomsticks from the environment, well, yeah, he won't be able to get that. But we can always also allow some specific other AI coming from spawn closet and bringing back those things, or having specific usable that can still provide the NPCs with the required objects that they need to have, or to perform specific behaviors that they can restock specific objects that they require before they can do the other behaviors. And then the other part is, of course, being sure their state. For us, there are different parts. It's not just the player influencing the behavior, but eventually it could be, for example, an NPC transitioning from one server to another, because maybe it's not necessarily keying up, but maybe it's just performing its duty on your ship. And in that case, your ship can change, server. And we also need to make sure that consistency, it's propagated for its behavior. So a lot is building those behavior in the right way, and allowing the transition between the different states, from what you need, what you can perform, basically.
From Fish19, they ask, could AI commit crimes and get a crime stat?
They could, and they can also give crime stats. This is one thing that we want to do as well, right? So if you bother, too much, civilians, then they could call the police, and that one might trigger, crime stats for you, or so maybe the guards or policemen can actually, have specific. We have that one already with spaceships control. Like I think we have the.
Nada, están comentando un poquito sobre el tema del rendimiento de lo que es los NPCs con el tema de los servidores, el estado actual de los servidores, y dice que a veces pues que es difícil equilibrar el tema de cómo deberían de funcionar los NPCs en el estado actual del juego, debido a que las cosas que igual no funcionan y que igual funcionan para unos buenos FPS de refresco del servidor, igual no funciona si el servidor pues tiene FPS bajos. Al mismo tiempo, si lo haces demasiado letal, pues cuando hay FPS altos, pues se convierte en una bestia. Entonces, que siempre están buscando un constante equilibrio debido al desarrollo, pero bueno, que tienen que moverse hacia adelante y pensar también en el futuro, y que el futuro pues va a ser de otra manera. Aparte de eso, están comentando otra cosa interesante, es la posibilidad de que los NPCs en el futuro te den crime stat, o incluso si molestas a la población, pues que la población puede llamar a la policía. Son cosas que quieren implementar. También estaban comentando qué pasa en el caso de que pues alguien decida secuestrar un NPC de misión, o qué sucederá en esos casos, y dice que bueno, que hay maneras de resolver ese tipo de situaciones también.
The animation was blocked out, of course, so it's not like correctly positioned, but basically they can go next to a usable and pick up something that is not perfectly aligned. They can take it from different locations. Maybe there's a weapon rack. They can go to the weapon rack and grab a weapon. And then they can loot bodies. So they can grab weapons or ammos from bodies, or from, magazines that might be contained into a crate, or on the ground. So basically they have like a flow where they find the search for something that is, in a good position, is not too close to targets and stuff like this. And then they can grab it and use it and reload, and use the new weapon, basically, and switch to the new weapon. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Folks who have been reading the monthly report, I lost who said this, I'm sorry. Folks who have been reading the monthly report have seen mention of Apollo as a new term that they're used to hearing about subsumption, but now they're hearing about Apollo. Can you tell us real quick what Apollo is?
Yeah, so basically we have two. It's always subsumption, but basically we have two different tools. One that is internal tool, basically exactly embedded. Maybe we can show it in one session, but basically it's the internal tool in our editor. So what it means is we want to be able to reference things directly in the levels. With the external tool, we couldn't do it. So we always had like a bit of additional information that were the platforms that were supposed to expose information to the external tool. This one is basically meant to streamline a little bit the usage of subsumption creation data, basically. So you can create activities and missions in the internal tool. You can create platforms. And the idea is that all the internal data gets automatically propagated to the tool without us having to necessarily expose it to the external tool and then, use an external tool to do these operations. Apollo also includes some more, some other features that the external tool didn't have. For example, the editing of the master graph that Fadi has been working on. Michael.
Claro, están haciendo una pregunta porque comentaron en el monthly report acerca de Apollo, que es una herramienta que están utilizando para... Que es una herramienta pues que está integrada en lo que es el motor de juego para poder configurar, o sea, para poder trabajar con el subsumption. El subsumption, que es la lógica de comportamiento, el conjunto de de lógicas de comportamiento que tienen los NPCs, pues ellos le llaman subsumption. Y pues el Apollo, esta herramienta, pues precisamente permite pues reflejar eso sin necesidad de que ellos tengan que acudir a una herramienta externa para poder pues definir parámetros dentro del motor de juego para la IA.
It's our internal subsumption tool. Is what basically is meant to grow into, giving us more power for editing missions, for example. Like one thing that we want to do in the future is like
Claro, dice que pues una de las cosas que tiene, pues lo acabo de decir ahora, ¿no? Que es el tema de pues poder facilitar la adición de misiones, que le dé más potencia, ¿no? Para poder, o sea, más facilidades.
Shark's Bite says, will an NPC ever be able to take my med gun off me and revive me?
so. Yes. So if you have friends, NPC that are meant to support you, like what we call body eyes, that's one of the things we're working on. And it's exactly the fact that if he knows that you are his friend and you are dead, then he might either use his med pen or he might find a med pen.
Una de las cosas en las que están trabajando es en la IA coleguita, Body IA, que le llama, ¿no? La IA coleguita. Porque le acaban de preguntar, ¿será algún NPC capaz de pillar mi pistola médica y poder revivir? Me dice, sí, estamos trabajando en la IA coleguita que podrá hacer eso.
Yes, bartender.
No,
I
no.
said a lot of.
No.
I can speak for
No.
hours about bartenders. It's too much.
That's it. Thank you for
Cool.
taking the time to be here with us this week, friend. It's
Pleasure.
always nice. We didn't get to chat a whole lot when I was over in Frankfurt, so we've been trying to find a time where we can get together and do this. I think we originally planned this episode out like 8 or 9 weeks ago, and we finally, made calendars and everything work. That's it for this week's episode of Star Citizen Live. If you haven't already, be sure you check out Inside Star Citizen yesterday. That's our end of the quarter sprint report for Q1 2023. Inside Star Citizen is going on its regularly scheduled hiatus. That'll be offline for about the next 4 weeks. This show is taking a week off. Next Friday is a holiday. I think it's Good Friday. Everybody's shaking their head. I have no idea. Is it, Fran? Is that what it is?
It's Good Friday.
Okay.
Good Friday.
So next week is a holiday. So I don't know. They told me I had a day off, so I'm going on vacation. I'm going to take off, and I'm gonna take some time off. If you're in Paris tomorrow, there's a Bar Citizen in Paris tomorrow. You can join Mark Gibson and Christian Schmidt and some other folks whose names are escaping me right now, and myself at the Bar Citizen in Paris. The details are on the website. I don't know. It's in my email. I'm just going to go where they tell me. And then there's another Bar Citizen next week in Manchester. I think there's one in Phoenix going on this weekend that that Zylo, Tyler Wicken, Director of Community, is at. So you can check that out if you haven't already. And then we'll be back here in 2 weeks with another Star Citizen Live, and then we'll be back with more Inside Star Citizen in a month. Be sure you check out, you keep an eye on the Star Citizen socials and the RobertSpaceIndustries.com website for details on 3.18.1, 3.19 potentially going to PTU sometime. All the bug fixes. I don't know what else to say about the 40.014 and stuff like this. It's the right people are on the right job. I am not the right people. So those folks are working on that stuff. They will give you the updates when they have them. I'm in this little chat right here. Look, I'll show you the chat. A chat right there where they're constantly like, we've got this, and then the diffusion router is doing that, and then the cache clearing is doing that, and they are tracking these things down and getting them fixed one by one until they get to the point where things will hopefully return to where we all want them to be. So for Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared. That was Fran. I'm going on vacation. Can I see if this fits? I'll take my glasses off. Hold on. I'm out of here. Enjoy your time. Be safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks, everybody. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
A ver, a ver. Audi. A ver, están diciendo de que se va de vacaciones, discolando, se va una semanita, así que lo veremos dentro de 2 semanas en el Star Citizen Live. Y que el Insight pues lo tenemos dentro de 3 semanas, en teoría. O sea que va a haber unas vacaciones también de Inside Star Citizen. Que estemos atentos a una potencial PTU de la 3.19. Vuelta a empezar, chavales. Y dice que bueno, que están martillando todo para que... pues arreglando todo lo posible, ¿no? El parche y sus mierdas. Para que esté a la altura de un estándar determinado. Para que se pueda disfrutar el juego. La 3.19, ¿eh? Todo el tema de la minería, todo el tema de lo que se viene, ¿eh? Lo que se viene. O sea, ya salimos. O sea, salimos de la 3.18 para meternos en la 3.19 en plan de. Ay. Bueno, pues hay que ver a ver qué tal va la cosa, ¿no? Hay que ver a ver qué tal va la cosa. Eh, y vamos a ver. Voy a darme un segundito porque voy a dejar esto ya subido en el YouTube. Vamos a ver. Primero, pues esto de aquí.